Campaigner against dark kitchens lies here.
Yeah.
Hey, Matt Haycox here. So today I'm here with Maxine Thompson, and she's a chef turned fashion designer who's now the founder of Polka Pants, initially for chefs and now tailored trousers for working women. So thanks for coming, Maxine.
Pleasure.
That's like a tongue twister.
Yeah. I know, I still can't get my head around it.
Well, listen, tell us all about that in a minute, but just to set the scene and for the guys at home, just describe your career in 60 seconds.
So I think I'm probably one of your typical sort of slash generations. I've had, 3 degrees over a few countries over a few years.
I've never heard that expression before. A slash generation.
Really? I think.
I use the word, slash.
Well, I think Paris Hilton was like, she's like a model slash designer.
Yeah.
Slash.
No, but I've never actually heard it in the context of there's a.
So what did I do? I originally studied fashion design in Brisbane. But did it with a double degree. It was sort of the only way my dad let me do a business degree was to do an arts degree, was to do a business degree with it. And then moved to New York, where I landed a job for Chanel and was there for 3 years.
What, doing design?
No, actually, my job was just kind of basically to schmooze VIP clients. So a lot of customer facing just to make sure that they had everything they wanted, which was really fun, but I was kind of miserable doing it because I wasn't.
That was your way of trying to professionalise the fact you spent 4 years drinking in New York.
Basically, yeah. Cocktail hour always. But then I was miserable, and at the time my sisters and I had secured a cookbook deal because we used to have like a food blog that we started like 15 years ago. And so I quit my job at Chanel and went to culinary school and trained to be a chef in New York.
How many sisters you got?
2, a twin sister and an older sister.
Okay, and were they back in Australia at the time? Or did anyone come to New York with you?
Yeah, no, just me. My twin sister got married, and so my dad was like, "Go on, you do your thing." So I left.
What kind of cooking did you do? What kind of cookbook was it?
It was sort of it was more of a collaboration between artists and their relationship with food. So it had no food photography, and we would commission the artist to do their interpretation of a recipe that we created.
Okay.
Yeah, and so then from that we got picked up with a cookbook deal, and it came out, maybe like 8 years ago. So it feels a little like in the past now.
Fantastic. If only you were here at breakfast time this morning, I wouldn't have had to have eggs on toast.
No.
And how does that bring us up to where we are today?
So I think from Chanel, I left New York, went back to Australia, and sort of was working as a chef in a restaurant. And this was like 6 years ago. So it was sort of at the time where cooking was becoming cool and chefs were becoming more of like an interactive part of the dining experience, and kitchens were becoming open and chefs were less hidden in basements and more of, to be seen in the kitchens. And so having worked at Chanel and now working in an open kitchen, I was just like a bit taken back by how like ugly you had to look all the time in kitchens, especially when you were sort of running food out to the tables and had to interact with customers and clients. I just didn't feel very comfortable. And so having a background in design, I started making my own clothes and started wearing them into the kitchen, and just felt a lot better and more confident and comfortable talking to people and running food. And then I had thought about it a lot, and then I moved to England about 5 years ago and started doing a lot of market research around it to see if it was other women having the problem and not just me being a diva. And it turned out that a lot of other women were. So.
Were you just making the trousers? I take it we're wearing some today?
Yeah, wearing some. Just trousers. We still only make just trousers. Just focusing on doing one thing and doing it really well. And
when you say for kind of working women, I mean in any kind of female, well, any kind of working woman, or in more manual tasks, whatever.
More
cooking.
Physical. Yeah, I mean we sort of launched it as a hospitality focus because that's the sort of the industry that I knew. But then from there it sort of opened up a can of worms into women, like there not being much clothing aimed at women who had more like, I guess, practical careers. So like, ceramicists and artists and set designers and filmmakers, rather than having to wear a pair of jeans every day because sometimes you don't want to, but having more to like workwear that was focused at those sorts of industries.
Cool. And do you think it'll always stay as trousers, or would you bring anything else into the mix?
We're thinking about developing a few other things into the mix, but at the moment it's trousers, because at the moment we only have like one style. So we're looking at introducing more styles into the trouser range, but just keeping it still trousers.
I remember Gary Rhodes with his black and white checks when I was
checks,
a kid. I can't boil an egg, but from being a kid, I used to get so excited to get the news of the world every Sunday. I think in the magazine they always had Gary Rhodes in the back with his super spiky hair and his trousers, and I thought, I can't wait to read that, and I've literally never cooked one thing.
Yeah, it's funny. I almost
liked his hair and trousers.
I almost took a picture of a girl on the street the other day who was wearing those chef trousers as a fashion piece, and I was just kind of like, oh snap! Like my job is now null and void if real chef trousers are becoming cool.
What would you say the best decision that you've ever made is?
I think for me the best decision probably was moving to New York. I'd never been there before. I'd never planned on moving there, but I'd just graduated from uni, and a friend had asked me, like, what am I doing? Do I want to move to New York? And I just said yes. And I think the people that I met over there and the different industries that I worked in really sort of helped to shape me as a person and, help pave my golden career path, maybe.
Yeah, and it was from Australia to New York you moved?
Yeah, Australia to New York, back to Australia. I went from New York to a tiny little place called Hobart. So from one of the biggest cities in the world to one of the smallest cities in the world.
Oh, really?
Which was quite interesting. But yeah, I was there for about 9 months and then moved back to the UK.
When did you come to England for the first time then?
When I was 18.
Okay.
For like my gap year, my parents sort of put me and my twin sister on a plane and was like, just go. Just go do something else.
Give us a year of peace.
Go party somewhere else, not at home.
And so I was going to ask you, what the scariest moment's been along the way for you. I mean, do you think that's been arriving in some of these countries, not knowing people, with a big change ahead of you, or has that always been something you've taken in your stride and you find other things scarier?
I think I find other things scarier. I think that's, I think maybe being Australian, you're just used to getting on a plane and going to meet people, like always have that sense of travel. I think the scariest thing for me, mainly, being a business owner, and for a long time it was just me running the business, but I think the scariest thing for me was employing somebody, because you're on your own for so long and you don't really have any responsibilities except sort of, to yourself and maybe investors if you have them, which I don't at the moment. But, employing somebody and taking on, that financial responsibility and emotional responsibility, because there's even more pressure on you and the company to sort of make money because their health and well-being depends on it.
How many staff have you got now?
Just 2, and then my PR girl. She's not really staff, but yeah.
Fantastic. And so have you got any mentors? Have you got any mentors now? Have you had any mentors along the way who've been kind of influential?
We've got a couple. I think when we were starting to launch, I was very lucky enough to work with a woman who runs the retail and marketing division at London College of Fashion. Okay. And she was amazing because she's had so much experience in practical retail market, and then also from an academic side of things. So she helped me really put together the 17 different versions of my business plan and really work out our sales and marketing strategy. And so we had her pre and just during our launch. And now I've got a couple of women in America who also founded workwear labels, who were amazing. One's based in LA and then the other one's based in New York. And then also my parents, because they started their own company. And so they're always up for giving me advice, which is nice.
Do they come over to England?
A couple of times, maybe once every couple of years.
And you said obviously your parents are always up for giving you advice as well, but what do you think the best piece of advice you've ever been given is? Who's it from?
Actually, a woman who I used to work for in New York, who's an absolute powerhouse. Her and her friend started this big wholesale bakery company, but she just said never be scared to ask for help. I think as a business owner, there's so much pressure on you to think that you need to know everything and you should know everything. But she's like, the truth is that you don't, and so never be scared to just ask.
I'm 100% with that. I think it's something that I always talk about, and if I'm being honest about it, that I learned far too late in life as well. I think I always say that with any other kind of line of business, well, not line of business, but any other career path, whether it's a sportsman or an artist or whatever, even if you're fantastic at it, or even if you're the best in the world, you have a coach, you have a team, you have all those people around you. and people don't think don't think twice about why Roger Federer's got multiple coaches. Even though he's the best in the world, there's always someone snapping at his heels. But I think there's this automatic and probably a very British automatic assumption that if you're in business, as soon as you do your first day in business, you're a businessman. That's it. There's nothing else to learn. And it's almost embarrassing if you have to ask.
Yeah.
And but I always say to people now, if I could do one thing differently, it would be to I've realised that 15 years ago and start to take more active out. I mean, I've never been afraid to ask for help and stuff, but it's always been more in a passive way. Whereas over the last couple of years, I've actively sought out mentorship, coaching, whatever that may be, and for me, it's something to be kind of proud and excited about, and to
rather than sort of like shy away from it and be embarrassed about it.
But even with most of my peers, or people who are successful, or infinitely more successful than me, it's still almost like a laughable activity over in the UK. It's like, oh God, you're talking to that fucking motivational guy again. How many times you're going to walk on coal? It's like we, as a culture, we just don't get it. Yeah,
which is funny because like in America, it's completely opposite to that. Everyone's like, you have to have a mentor, and there's so many like groups and focus groups you can go to and like open talking sessions, and it feels like there it's more like of a community sort of spirit to help each other out rather than just like to shy away and try and do everything by yourself.
Any future plans you can tell us about? Anything exciting on the horizon?
I think I mentioned earlier we're looking to launch our everyday collection in the next couple of months, so introducing a few different leg styles and shapes and colours and stuff into the collection.
Different leg shapes?
The leg shapes, yeah, 3 legs.
For people with 3 legs and one long leg and one short leg.
No, just because at the moment they're just sort of like one shape and tailored, so looking at doing a wide leg and a flare and a cropped version and just things like that to sort of suit different people in different industries. And then also potentially a men's range.
Okay. So I can have some flared checker pants
myself.
You
can have some flared checker pants.
The next time I'm here on camera, I'll be wearing black and white things
some
and
flared leopard print.
For one long leg and one short leg. That's why I'm always sat like this.
Or a leopard print jumpsuit, maybe.
So tell me, if I obviously my business is finance and investments, etc. So I always ask people if I was to give you a business loan or to make an investment in something that you want to do, but it has to be away from what it is you're doing now. A complete career change, if you like. What would it be for you? What could you see yourself doing? I
think one thing that I would really like to do, and I kind of was thinking about it a few years ago, but it never happened, is sort of, I think, obviously, because I have a background in food, and, you see a lot of, these like WeWork, co-working space come up, but there's not a lot of room, particularly for people that work in the hospitality industry. So it would be essentially setting up, a big warehouse with a huge like test kitchen and like commercial kitchen where people can sort of rent them out and come in, because in London especially, no one really has any access to that. And so if you sort of like, run a food market or, you make jam, you kind of have to set up all of that infrastructure by yourself, and it's often really expensive to do and really hard to come across, or you have to rent out a kitchen, buy it for like an hour, and it's like really expensive. So I would have liked to have set up like a big warehouse where you've got, that infrastructure, and then you can always set it up like cooking schools and other
that
events.
Concept doesn't exist at the moment then?
Not at the moment. Like there's a few things popping up, but they're still quite small and pretty expensive, and still, within a certain click that you can only have access to them. So just kind of making the whole like food community a bit more accessible for people in London.
I guess, I've seen a couple of business plans come across my desk lately for businesses which are in the dark kitchen space or whatever.
Yeah.
All these concepts that just didn't even exist 18 months ago, two years ago.
What did I watch on BBC last night? The thing about Deliveroo cooking in all the windowless.
Well, that's where it's from. One of the plans in particular that I remember, it's a couple of guys who've got a dark kitchen in a certain area of London, and the quantity of food that they're supplying purely through Deliveroo and Uber Eats is probably double or triple what you would expect a typical restaurant to have, and they're doing it off 80% less overhead, and they've got the complete flexibility that if they needed to move from that location to that location, it's not going to make the blindest bit of difference. It's interesting how things move along.
Yeah, and then terrifying if you want to work in a dark room with no windows for 8 hours a day, but it's a different conversation.
I feel like I've touched a nerve there. Moving on. But we've come to my final question anyway, which is something I always like to ask everyone who's been here how you'd like to be remembered when you've gone, when you've gone from this world, that is. And but I like the question to be answered as how you would have your tombstone written.
Oh God. My tombstone written. Didn't think about that one. I thought of it.
Campaigner against dark kitchens lies here.
Yeah. No, I think, because I never really set out to create a brand or my own company or anything. And I think, Polka Pants has grown from being a brand to sort of representing more of a community around, the women that wear the trousers and support, the brand. So I think I would like to be remembered for creating like a community rather than a brand.
Fantastic. Well, listen, it's been fantastic to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope you guys at home enjoy it, and look forward to showing you the whole video.
Thank you.